Chopin wrote Polonaises from the beginning. His first work, written down by his piano teacher, 8 years old I think, was a Polonaise. His last was a mazurka. In many ways, the great spirit and flow of ethnic nationalism in the second half of the 19th century is certainly indebted to Chopin's great nationalistic efforts, the mazurka and the Polonaise. Now, what is a Polonaise? Well, it's a little difficult. However, Groves writes, a stately Polish dance, the most characteristic of all national dances of Poland. The French name, which is current even in its own country, dates back to the 17th century, a period during which 3 French princesses in succession became the consorts of Polish kings, and French customs and the French language were current at court. It was probably at that time, too, that the dance took the courtly or aristocratic instrumental form in which it is still known. Mainly, though, its artistic cultivation by Chopin is how we know the Polonaise today. He wrote 16. 7 are mature examples. There's also an Andante Spinato and Grande Polonaise Brillante, which is an effective virtuoso piece, and we'll be hearing that. And this shows, and I think this group of pieces will show Chopin's long, wonderful adventure in this form from the first mature example in C-sharp minor until we have a work called the Polonaise Fantasy. By this time he had so stretched the form that he had to use the word fantasy. There is, of course, the famous A-flat Polonaise, which is the epitome of this work. There's the mighty F-sharp minor. There's the gloomy C minor, which Anton Rubinstein called Poland's downfall. And the A major standing next to it, the military, Poland's glory. There are definitely martial elements in the works, in certain of them, and then in others, the gloomy melancholy that Chopin felt about his nation's oppression. Obviously, this dance form, and it's really not a dance, but a type of march with a touch of pageantry. But let's begin with examples that are not known. They are posthumous. They're Opus 71, meaning they were published after his death. They're not often played. And we will begin with the work from 1827, while he was still at the Warsaw Conservatory, the Polonaise in D minor, and the pianist Peter Frankl. Polonaise from the pen of the 17-year-old Polish genius. It's in D minor, and it's in the editions as Opus 71, number 1. Chopin had taken a form which had already had its great days, and the spirit of the Polonaise had really gone through Europe in a very fashionable way. It was danced in many countries. Weber wrote a Polonaise, more than one. Brilliant example. Bach, Telemann, Wilhelm Friedmann Bach. And in Poland, various composers wrote Polonaises. Chopin grew up with the spirit of the work, and from the first attempted to make the form into great art. Here we see already a certain nostalgia. The D minor, the dainty little trio in D. It's a good little piece. It's juvenile. It's not Chopin the master yet of pianism. From the age of 17 to 19, he would have a development so startling that in the history of music, I can't think of a 2-year process in a youth with such development. Mendelssohn at 16 had already written the Midsummer Night's Dream Overture, and in many ways one can say he went downhill. The precocity of musical genius is a very interesting thing. The next Polonaise is in B-flat major. I don't think it's terribly successful, but it will be interesting to listen to. Pianist is Garrick Ohlsson. And that was Garrick Ohlsson playing the B-flat major Polonaise Opus 71, number 2, Chopin being 17. We'll be back shortly. The Polonaises of Chopin. We heard 2 early examples, and in a second we'll hear the finest of these early works in F minor. Christian de Lille writes, "Tradition has it that the Polonaise was conceived at Krakow in 1574. Henri de Valois, later to be Henri III of France, who had recently been elected to the Polish throne, wished the ladies of the court to be presented to him during the course of a magnificent reception. The nobles decided that their ladies should file past the new sovereign to the strains of a majestic march. Such was its success that the Polonaise immediately took its place in the tradition of the court, every time a foreign monarch acceded to the throne of Poland, and his subjects executed this new court march in his presence." So the Polonaise is a sexist dance in a way, to exhibit women. Well, that's news to me until I read this. The Polonaise in F minor, in one of Chopin's early letters we read, "Princess Elise Radziwill was so much interested in my Polonaise in F minor that I could not refuse to send for it. Please let me have it by return of post. You can picture to yourself the character of the princess from the fact that she makes me play the Polonaise to her every day. The trio in A-flat major always pleases her particularly." Chopin is now 19 years old, still in Poland, soon to leave at the age of 20 to become a professional patriot. He never again sees Poland after his 20th year, though he is very affected by the events there, tragic events. Terrible uprising in 1830 where he was in Vienna and thought that his parents were massacred by the Russians. That's when he penned supposedly the revolutionary etude. He wanted to come back home. He wanted to fight on the barricades with his friends. Letters came, no, you must not. You're more valuable outside of Poland. Well, the Polonaises, Schumann, when he first heard them, always so right on, as they say, said, "On the Polonaises we have some dangerous dissonances." During World War II, every time it could be heard on radio, they would play the Polonaise in A major or other of Chopin's works. He became a symbol of freedom. Now his music is one of the universal heritages in music, because a Polonaise will affect a South American, someone from Japan, America. It lifts one. There is this extraordinary quality of love of country, which I don't know if it was as dangerous in those days as today. However, art ennobles patriotism. This F minor Polonaise is quite poetic and I think deserves an occasional public performance. Let's hear it in a performance by Garrick Ohlsson, who has recorded all of them. The F minor Polonaise, Opus 71, number 3, composed in 1829. A poetic work. One can constantly hear the Polonaise rhythm underneath, that underlying rhythm. Garrick Ohlsson, in a very loving performance of the work. Turn to number 11. It's in G minor. It was composed when Chopin was living at the estate of his godmother, where his father was family tutor. He was 7.5 years old, and we hear this little G minor Polonaise, his first composition. Pianist Peter Frankl. What a nice feeling. The first work from the pen of Frédéric Chopin. Little G minor Polonaise. That was Peter Frankl. Let's hear Garrick Ohlsson play that work. Garrick Ohlsson in the Polonaise of 1817. Chopin's first written down venture into his art, of his art. Well, he wrote one 6 months later that we have. Let's see if, in our opinion, he progressed. What a ridiculous word. It's in B-flat major. Pianist Peter Frankl. the B-flat Polonaise, Chopin nearing 8 years old. The next one finds the young Chopin 11 years old. We just heard Peter Frankl in the B-flat Polonaise. Let's hear the 11-year-old Chopin's work performed by Garrick Ohlsson. The key is A-flat major. The Polonaise in A-flat major from Chopin's 11th year. And the pianist was Garrick Ohlsson. And we will return with one in G-sharp minor by the 12-year-old Chopin. Well, we heard Chopin 11 years old. We now jump to 12 years old. It's a Polonaise in G-sharp minor. And Garrick Ohlsson says he finds this hard to believe that it's the work of a 12-year-old, for it is so much more mature than the preceding example of the form, the one in A-flat we just heard. However, they say it is 12 years old, and by the way, This is a 2-record set. There are very few recordings that give all of the Polonaises. The Peter Frankl on Vox is complete, and the Garrick Ohlsson with very good notes by Mr. Ohlsson, who won the 1970 International Chopin competition in Warsaw. And his is on Angel. Let's hear this G-sharp minor Polonaise from the 12th year in Chopin's life. Indeed, it is some remarkable piece by a 12-year-old lad living in Poland with very little of the great happenings in European music happening to him. Poland was a bit out of the mainstream then. Well, we've covered 7 examples of the Juvenilia Polonaises of Chopin. There are two more. The 16th year presents one in B-flat minor, which to me is my favorite of these works. We'll hear that tomorrow night when we'll continue the Polonaises. And join me tomorrow morning at 11:05 when we have comparative performances of Liszt's Etudes. Thank you for listening.